to this edition of Real Talk. I'm your host, Melissa Mahler, and my guest today is Dr. Tremaine Young. Hello, Dr. Young, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Melissa. It's great to be here.
Well, it's great timing because it's summer, and like a lot of us, we're trying to get an extra beach body shape. And talking to you over the past few weeks, and a shout out to Stephanie Matthews for introducing us, I thought it would be great to have you on and talk about not just fitness, but total fitness and some of the stuff that you've shared with me before that has to do with mind, body, and spirit. So why don't we start off by sharing a little bit about your story and how you got interested in fitness from when you were an athlete early on.
Yes, thanks, Melissa. When I was younger, I played basketball, actually earned a Division I track and field scholarship to the Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. There I was able to train with peak performance athletes. I had an Olympic coach. His name was Milton Noddy, and he taught me the ways of the high jump and the long jump, the trains as an Olympian. There were certain things that we did that I started to find with my body, as you mentioned, peak performance, when it came to the eating, when it came to the rest. The diets on the college campus sometimes can't be the best because we're always being fed the same food in the cafeteria. So there was ways that we had to make sure that I was on a strict regimen that was going to help me achieve peak performance. I earned an engineering degree while I was there at OU. And the biggest thing about earning an engineering degree was it helped me to realize what a machine was and how a machine works. And later on in my career, I changed to become a primary care physician. Taking that background as an engineer, I said, what's the best machine ever built? The human body. So there was a lot of principles from peak performance, and one thing we like to use is work. And work to us is force times distance. That creates energy. And as I was working with some of my athletes, some of my patients, everyone's at a different level. When we talk about total wellness, if you can't stand up and you come to me, that will be the wellness that we're going to focus on, getting you to stand up. If you're having trouble walking or balance, that is the peak performance or the total wellness that we're going to look at. We say we got to make sure this individual is able to achieve just being able to walk, to find balance in their body. So just because I work with a lot of professional athletes or Olympians, I also work with a geriatric population and children. The key with everyone is we all have a center of gravity. And with this center of gravity is where our core is related. And if we're able to get this individual to engage the muscles within that core, we can control their center of gravity to make them better at what they're trying to achieve. So that's my total wellness story, is finding the individual as where they're at, understanding where we need to take them and how we can make them better. Not only, like you said, with the working out, but also with the dietary aspects, with the resting aspects, and also making sure the body's well hydrated.
One of the things that I've come to appreciate is the importance of core. And a lot of people have busy schedules, and as you talked about, there are different places physically as well. If you had one part to focus on, would that be core? Is that where you start? And if so, why is that so important?
That's very important, and that's one thing that we'll do. We'll do an actual test, and we'll test what we look at. We're looking at limb strength. So we test both arms, both legs, and then we'll say, hey, how can we make this better by engaging the individual's core? I always show the patients or my athletes one example, and I talk about professional boxers. So a professional boxer, when they're boxing, they want to protect pretty much the knockout point, which is going to be in their jaw area, but they also wanted to protect their body. Even a body blow can turn off their legs and their arms. No one's ever got hit in their arms or their legs in a professional boxing match and turned off the body. So you're definitely right. The core is very crucial, even to breathing. If your core and your diaphragm is not engaged, you'll have trouble breathing. So that's one thing that we do look at. That's pretty much you want to say that is the number one area.
And you've talked a little bit before about eating, and I know you have some views on what people should eat or not eat in general and how that impacts their overall health. I know we've talked about meat and dairy.
Yeah, yes, we have.
Definitely dairy, I can't live without. But why don't you share some of your philosophy on things that people should or shouldn't eat and why?
Well, when I was 25 years old, I became a vegan. The reason why I became a vegan because I used to play one-on-one basketball against this professional basketball player. He played in the NBA. He played during the time when Dr. J played. His name's Perry Moss. And we would play one-on-one basketball full court where this would be his basket and this would be mine. It took me a whole year to beat Perry. And I was wondering, why am I unable to beat Perry? I'm 25. At that time, he was 40. And I was thinking to myself, I'm missing the point of finishing baskets or the energy at the end of the game. So I started hanging out with him and started understanding the philosophies that, he didn't eat any bread, any dairy, any animal products. And I was wondering why. And I started to think about the basic principles of even me having a son. How do we first introduce our kids to food? And it's basic things that are, some fruit. Sometimes we may give them some oats or things that are very small and easy to assume to the body. So when I look at bread or wheat, what I like to call, every time we eat a wheat product, that breaks down the sugar. So if we're eating pizza, we're eating hamburgers, we're eating hot dogs that have a bun, that little element breaks down the sugar. It feeds our bloodstream. And with that feeding our bloodstream, what happens is that we're getting more sugar into the muscle that we no longer need. When it comes to the meat products, I think about our teeth. So I think about a lion. So let's take a lion for example, and they may see some type of bison or some type of gazelle. They eat their meat as is. So as with the blood and the bones and the carcass and the hair, they don't take anything off. So pretty much what I'm looking at, the things I want to eat, I want to make sure that whatever I'm eating, there hasn't been much change to it. So we're looking at the fruit, we're looking at the grains, we're looking at, brown rice, anything that gluten has been eliminated from. Those are the things I want to eat, something that my body can recognize now and something that it didn't take a process for it to get to me and say, oh, now we've gone through all these processes of removing things, so it's coming to me as is.
What would be the benefits, though? Like, how does that, from a philosophy standpoint, it sounds great, but one, I think it's probably hard for people to implement, especially given today's schedule and people all over with kids doing this and we're running here. A lot of times those things are hard to incorporate. But what are some of the health benefits that you think people achieve by following that type of program? And maybe some things that you suggest to make it possible to incorporate that?
Even before I talk to my athletes or my patients about meat, I always go with the bread and dairy first. And the reason why I go with the bread and dairy first is because people know what bread and dairy is. They know it's the ice cream, they know it's the cheeses, and there's alternatives right now. So now we can have soy alternatives, we can have almond alternatives, we can have different type of rice alternatives that will assimilate to the body and say that's still cheese or that's still something that I can use as a alternative that didn't come from that cow. The biggest thing about dairy is this. Dairy has an enzyme inside of it called casein or casein, okay? There's two products that you can look online that they use this casein for. They use it for super glue and paint resin. Super glue and paint resin. So this is what we're asking our body to digest. That's one benefit alone, is that now when we eat dairy, it slows down the body processes. If there's something that we're going to make a super glue or paint resin in, and they're saying, look, every time I make a bottle of super glue or paint resin, I have to have casein in there. That means that's something that you're trying to consume as well. Again, when we come to the bread, these are the patients that come to me and they have diabetes. And we look at all their levels with diabetes. If it's childhood diabetes or adult onset diabetes, I say, look, Give me 30 days, and we're going to eliminate all bread, all gluten from your diet. Just all bread, all gluten. And we're going to look at the levels, and you go back to your primary care physician, and we'll recheck your levels through your blood. And every time it's worked, because what we're really eliminating from their diet is the extra sugar that the body doesn't need anymore.
I'll try it if you come here and cook for 30 days.
That's a great one.
On the fitness side of it as well, the physicality, what exercises would you, after you do your, assuming a normal, healthy, no other problems, but hasn't really worked out a lot, to get started in having a fitness routine into their world? Because I know that especially, for women, doing certain things helps strengthen your bones and reduce possibilities of osteoporosis and other things like that. So I think there's no doubt that exercise is beneficial, but sometimes making that first step is hard. So how do you get people going?
What we really do after the assessment is we want people to understand what the muscles were designed for. They were designed to bring engagement to the body. So the best way to start someone off that hasn't worked out in a while would be isometric exercises. How can we say, we want you to turn on your core or your legs or a bicep or your chest muscle, and we want to teach you to hold positions. If you can hold positions, you start to understand when we put movement with those positions that, hey, I was doing this isometric exercises. Dr. Trey told me to engage this here. Now we're going to add motion to that same isometric exercise, but now you understand the balance and actually the positioning that your body should be in, so we make sure everything's proper. What happens most times is people try to, go to a gym, they're unsupervised, they're looking at all these selectorized, machines, or they've seen different competitions on TV when they're using free weights, and they're saying, hey, I can do that right now. You can't do that right now. It's almost like walking. When my son started to walk, he had to crawl first. And what the first thing he did was he got up on his knees and his hands, and he just held that position. That was an isometric exercise of what that was. And then as his body starts to get stronger, he started to stand up, but he still just stood there. He didn't try to take a step. And as it progressed months or, weeks down the way, he got more confidence in his muscles. That's the same thing I teach with all my athletes and someone else that's trying to, start a fitness routine.
On the athlete side, one of the discussions I've had with a lot of trainers is this focus that we have with high school and college kids, where they focus on just one sport, one because of the competition level and time, sometimes expense. But some of the pro trainers that I've spoken to really said that that's actually a disadvantage to youth right now because they're not cross-training their muscles. Do you think that's important? And if somebody, my son plays, both of them play baseball. They're on 3 teams. They have games every day. It would be hard to fit another sport in, but what are some things that you recommend to parents to help incorporate that cross-training aspect into their world?
The biggest thing, you're right, it's a very disadvantage. When I came up, I played 3 sports. I played football, I played basketball, and I ran track. And what happens, like you said, with the cross-training, track gave me an endurance that neither of the other sports could give me. They gave me different reactions. We want to make sure that your body's able to react. The only thing that's the same with all sports is we're trying to get that center of gravity, which is going to be, again, the core. We're trying to move it as fast as we can in a linear, lateral, and a vertical motion. And that's what cross-training comes out with. I don't do any free weights. I haven't seen any sport out there. If it's basketball, if it's football, if it's baseball, if it's hockey, if it's soccer, there's no weights in your hand during competition. All you have really is your body. So I've developed a product called the Tension Fit Trainer, it uses resistance and tension. Again, this goes back to the body doing work, which is force times distance. That brings power and energy to you as an individual. So what we really want to focus on, again, is back to that core. How do I get that core or that center of gravity to move faster than my opponent? That's what every sport is all about. Even if it's track and field, I got to get my center of gravity around the track faster than you do. If I'm a high jumper, I got to get my center of gravity over the bar higher. So we put it at 6 foot. I got my center of gravity over 6 foot. Now we moved up to 6'2", 6'3", all the way up to 7 foot or higher. It's still based off that center of gravity. It's the center of gravity getting over the bar. So one thing I want to talk to with my parents that have athletes as kids is, can we measure Johnny's center of gravity movement? Can we move it in a linear fashion, a lateral fashion, and a vertical fashion? Once we're able to measure that, we have a baseline. With that baseline, it gives us true stats. And that's what really people want to know is my son or my daughter, are they getting faster? Are they getting better? Are they all more balanced? That all comes with controlling the core and center of gravity.
When, people are traveling and there's always as well, I can't work out 5 days a week. I can't work out 6 days a week. I don't have an hour to do this. What are some things that people can implement tomorrow or today to incorporate some element of a workout into their routine that would make an impact?
The biggest thing I would say would be, even if I'm watching, let's say, like we said, the Cavs just won the NBA, finals. And there's one thing I do during the commercial.
Watch that?
I think it was the highest rated game, thus far. So there are certain exercises that you can do just at a seating fraction. So what I'll do, during the commercials, or me and my brother, we're watching the game and he's sitting on, one couch, I'm sitting on another chair. It's just raise your legs off the ground. If you raise your legs off the ground, we call it commercial abs. So the first commercial that comes on, we'll raise our legs up straight, right in the air. So we'll raise it up the whole entire commercial, and you'll see what 30 seconds or 40 seconds of a commercial does. After that, what we'll do is we'll bend our knees and we'll do a little bicycle run in the air, 30 seconds, just for the commercial, just called commercial abs. After the next commercial comes on, what we'll do is we'll do one where our legs are kicking out. Boom, 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 boom. And do you know it? The game's back on. So through every commercial, we're just doing commercial abs. It's something very simple. It's something basic. You're already watching your program. And, even if you use DVR, just don't fast forward through the commercials. Just say, look, I'm going to watch the commercials to get my abs in.
That's my treat, right? If I'm going to watch TV, I have to be working out. So
there you go.
I did want to talk. I know that you mentioned TFT, and one of the things that I thought was really interesting is the fact, when we talked to Stephanie, that she was able to do the workout, her mom was able to do the workout, and I think with so much going on in people's lives, it's neat to be able to work out as a family or have a group of people that might be at different levels to kind of spend, even if it's a half hour together. And so I think, why don't you just share a little bit about what TFT is and that aspect of it.
Okay. TFT stands for Tension Fit Trainer. It's something I developed in 2011. My whole regimen when I was working out as a collegiate athlete, Division I, was using weights. And it was coming from an Olympic mindset is what it was coming from. What I was finding out was during my competitions, after training weeks or days before, I was starting to develop DOMS. DOMS stands for Delayed Onset Muscle Soreness. DOMS, Delayed Onset Muscle Soreness.
Is that you feel like 2 days after, or, they both meant that you had a really good workout, you've ripped your muscles and they're healing? Right. It was supposed to be a good thing, I thought.
Right. Well, people use that as they've done something, but it doesn't help you with your competition. You're sore is what it is. So therefore, the body's trying to protect itself versus fire off. Mm-hmm. So with the TFT, you mentioned Stephanie and her mom coming in. They never use the TFT. TFT uses your own body weight. It uses suspension, and it uses gravity. That's one thing with us even sitting down doing this interview right now is gravity is playing a part of your body right now. It never turns off. So we have 9.8 meters per square hitting your body. So we want to make sure that we're using that. And if we're able to use that with the TFT, which is something that can be hooked up anywhere, you mentioned, like, what can we do for a workout when I'm traveling? The TFT is totally portable. You can hook it on your door, you can hook it on your car door, you can hook it on any fence. But what is the principle about TFT that separates any type of training? It always focuses on, if I'm using my biceps, my chest, my legs, it turns on the core. Every motion is about that core. It's always about that center of gravity and how we can get those muscles to engage. When I'm talking to a big room of individuals, I always do a wrist test. So I have everyone in the room put up their wrists. And what I do is I say, now grab your hand around your wrist, and there's no insulation around the wrist. So I have everyone wave, I have everyone shake a hand, have everyone think about when they're opening a door or they're driving their car. You're always engaging the muscles around that wrist. So then I say, now let's look at our center of gravity. Let's look at our core. And what's happened is this. We've trained our body not to put insulation around our wrist. You can do the same thing with your core, with your center of gravity, but you have to do exercises where that muscle is always on. Even as we do this interview right now, I'm talking with my center of gravity tight. As if somebody was going to hit me, I want to make sure that muscle is always on. So when I'm in competition, when I'm walking, when I'm standing up, when I'm trying to grab a glass of water out of the refrigerator, my muscle's on. My body thinks that it's muscle memory, and it says, you know what? I'm going to turn that on the same as my wrist is always turned on. So next time you're in a big room, you can use this. It's almost like an icebreaker. They say, look, everyone raise your wrists up. And you'll have, some professional athletes there. You'll have some, elderly there. You'll have some kids there. There won't be any insulation on anyone's wrist. And then you'll have them focus on the rest of their body, from their, for them glutes to their midsection. And you'll say, now think about your midsection looking like your wrist. That's the principle about TFT. It's the force times distance, which is going to bring work to the proper area of your body.
I'm tightening my abs up right now.
There you go. And they will too. And the more you talk to them, they'll start thinking about that every time. Or, you can even with your sons, you can, when they're relaxing, be like, that wasn't tight. And they're not working on that muscle. But when they get on the field of play and they tighten it, they train their body to always put that energy back to the proper area, it's going to translate on their field of play. You'll see them getting better.
On a global picture, in the United States versus, the UK or Italy or Asia or Australia, are there different challenges that you think that each of those places face in their approach to total fitness, as far as working out, eating healthy? The stress, I guess, is in everybody's world. But a friend of mine spent a lot of time traveling through Europe when he was younger, and thought the diet was very different. He said he looked at your plate and the color, the approach of things was different versus in the United States or other places.
I think the biggest thing would be the activity that we do. Sometimes, we're big on public transportation or driving ourselves around, Uber, or, let's hop this cab, let's take the bus, let's take the subway. Whereas a lot of countries are walking still. They're walking, they're riding bikes, they're more active is what I like to say. And mentioning about portions, my first 5 years of being a practitioner, I lived in Costa Rica. And the biggest thing is that their portions were smaller. There were certain things that they weren't eating. They were getting more fruits and vegetables in their diet. And I would see them starting with their youth doing this. And then even when they got to adults, those portions were staying the same. That's the biggest thing about us, is that in the United States, we're advertised so much to go to this restaurant, or like you said, the time. The biggest thing about time is that we never get it back. So our biggest focus should be, what are we feeding our body? There's another example that I talk to when I talk to my youth, and we talk about eating better. And they don't grab the concept because their body's all nice, and they're not well insulated right now. They're kind of thin. But I talk about getting on the airplane and the pilot coming on. They say, okay, we ran out of jet fuel. Well, we're going to put water inside of the jet fuel engine. But anyone that wants to get off is able to get off. And I ask them, I say, now who's going to take that flight? And all of them say, no, we're going to get off. There's no jet fuel, so, how are we going to fly? I said, well, you have to treat your body the same way. You have to put jet fuel inside of the body. We only get one life to be fit. So we're not feeding ourselves the things that gives our body the best peak performance, then you shouldn't be doing it. And if I'm talking to kids from age 7 to high school age, and they all get that principle, our adults should get that principle as well.
Yeah. Why don't you share with us maybe a quote that is an inspiration quote for you and a motivator for people to kind of focus on a bit?
I guess the biggest quote would be this, is that people, they want to win, but they fail to prepare. And when you fail to prepare to win, you're really never going to do it. And the preparation, it doesn't just start just with, practicing whatever activity you want to practice. You have to prepare to win by the rest you get, and myself included. I feel like I'm Superman. I got an S on my chest. I can get 4 to 5 hours of sleep, and I could be at peak performance. I can't. So I'm not preparing my body to take on the challenges of me to have peak performance or energy all the time. So the biggest thing is you have to prepare to be, the victorious person that you want to be. That starts with your rest. That starts with we're feeding our body, and that starts with some physical activity. 3 things we want to talk about is what are the stresses that are entering your body, and they enter the same way. They enter chemical, physical, and they enter emotional. And if we get a balance into the 3 of those, we become a better individual. So let's all prepare to win. And that starts with basic building blocks.
Oh, well, thank you. I think we all want to be winners. So, and I'm looking forward to having my 30 days of cooking. So
There you go. I'm on the way. I want to bring my TFT too.
I have to try that. So, well, thank you for joining us today and sharing some information about total fitness and some things that people can start to incorporate and get that beach body started and ongoing for everybody. So thank you, Dr. Trey, for joining us. And look forward to having you back. So thank you. I'm Melissa.
One last thing, I want to tell you that all the people that are supporting TFT, they love what you're doing with Pro Players Insiders. We love it, and we're very excited to work with you. And keep doing the great things that you're doing. Like I said, there's a hashtag I like to use is can't do it alone. And we need more individuals like you, telling the proper story. So we definitely thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, we try to share information and make an impact. So little bits at a time. So thank you. All right. Well, this has been Real Talk, and I'm Melissa Mahler, your host, and see you next time. Thanks.